In this video, I'll show you 10 traps in the Italian opening, the most played opening in chess. Not only that, I will show you how to refute and how to reply to each one of them. Let's get started with the most famous one, which is e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4. This is what's so called the Italian. And now this is knight d4 idea. I don't know, I don't believe anyone will fall for this. But anyways, the point is let this pawn being unprotected, and after knight takes e5, this is a bad move kind of because of queen g5. Now this knight is under fire, this pawn as well, and if white went on to be greedy and take on f7, like forking the queen and the rook, he will be just losing the game. After queen takes g2, rook f1, queen takes e4 check. Either you go with the queen, then knight c2 maybe, or knight takes e2 simply, or if bishop e2, then knight f3, it's a checkmate. That's why here in this position, back and 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 back. After knight d4, this is actually not a healthy trap because it gives white a good advantage. After knight takes d4 simply, e takes d4, and you just castled. And black now is very sad because all of what he knew is knight takes e5, and now he's just desperate out of the opening. He has the double pawns, and you go d3, you go f4, you go knight d2, knight f3, bishop somewhere d2, queen e2, e5, f5. You have many good stuff. This is actually the trap one. Let's go to the second trap. The second trap, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, and now d6. The point of d6 is to go bishop g4, doing some pin against this knight here. So I go knight c3, allowing that, and now bishop g4. After bishop g4, you go h3, and now bishop h5 as black. And now in this position, white to play. Very famous again, knight takes e5. Why knight takes e5? Because I am attacking on the bishop. And if you take my queen, then there's this idea, which is bishop takes f7, king e7 only move, and now knight d5, checkmate. Very famous one. So how about knight takes e5? Wait a second, knight takes e5, queen takes h5, knight takes e4. There's this idea of queen b5 check, and then you will get your piece back, and white will be a pawn up, which is actually winning. So what to do against this trap? First of all, this setup is kind of passive to block your bishop as early on. And usually, this is very important rule. Usually in the Italian and in the Royal Pays, this maneuver of bishop g4, bishop h5 is not a good one. Why? Because even if, for example, say d3, if you go bishop g4, h3, bishop h5, now there is always this idea of knight d2, knight f1, knight g3, and then this bishop will be out of the game on g6. So that's why I don't recommend to play d6. But let's say you are here, then simply bishop takes f3, and after bishop takes f3, queen f3, okay, there's a mate in one here. You could go queen d7, you could go knight f6, you could go everything, castling long, and you're completely fine, and slightly better for white, but it's fine, it's a game and you play it. Third one, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, and with the early bishop c5. After bishop c5, we will see later on the Evans gambit, but now we will discuss other stuff like d3. Knight f6, bishop, knight f6 castling, and this is actually a trap from black's point of view. Some traps from white, some traps from blacks. So after castling d6, and now in this position, bishop g5. After bishop g5, this is not, again, this is very important rule in the Italian. Don't play bishop g5 with short castling. If you are short castling, never go bishop g5. Either you go bishop g5 here, or if you castle and your opponent castle, then this is justified. Why? Because always there's h6, g5 idea is very annoying. So in the game, or in this trap, d6 is played, black is kind of waiting, and now after bishop g5, h6, bishop h4, right away g5, and after bishop g3, there's this very interesting idea, which is h5. At the first glance, it looks like, wait a second, g5 pawn now is not protected, and there's some issues on f7, so I go knight takes g5, and okay, h4, I'll lose my bishop, then knight takes f7, I'm attacking the queen. But here's the interesting story. First of all, queen e7 is winning for black, first of all, but second of all, h takes g3 is interesting. The point is, you take my queen, yes, but there is bishop g4, attacking your queen back. And now in order to save the queen, probably only move is queen d2. Not only move, okay, there's queen e1, queen c1, but you need to move the queen. f3 is not there because there's a pen. So after, say, queen d2, now there's this idea, knight d4. And you can imagine that how tough some issues now, like knight e2, rook h2, etc., etc. So now in order to avoid that, h3 has to be played with the knight e2 check. King to h1 is a bad move, actually. You need to give your queen back. But after king h1, simply mate in 2 for black. Try to find it. Rook takes h3, g takes h3, bishop f3. What a nice checkmate from black's point of view. So what should I do against that? First of all, don't play bishop g5, as I said. Don't play bishop g5 while you are castling. Okay, if you are castled and you find yourself in this kind of tough position, then you have two options. Either h3, which is a bit passive because you're waiting h4 or g4, or you go h4 right away. And after h4 right away, say for example knight h7, now we go c3, you wanted to go and strike in the center, and if g4, knight fd2, now the king side kind of consolidated, nothing there for black, and you're fine. You go b4, a4, b5, a5, etc, etc. Fourth trap, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, again bishop c5, we castle knight f6, and now there's this aggressive move, d4. What's interesting about these aggressive moves in the opening, if black doesn't know them, then it's a big advantage for white. But if he knows them, then probably it's gonna be equal. So after d4, the best move here for black is not that easy to be found over the board, which is bishop takes d4. We will see why. After that, knight takes d4. Now if e takes d4, ideas like e5 might be annoying, so knight takes d4 again, and now bishop g5. After bishop g5, again h6, g5 is played, but here white has a very interesting idea, which is f4. Seems very strong move, because after you take my bishop, I'll take on e5 and then attack both knights like this, attack the knight here and the knight there, then I will get my piece back. That's why black decided to take on f4, g takes f4, and he said fine, my knight is protected, the other knight is protected, I'll go d6, bishop e6, queen e7, castling long and using the g file. But this is actually not true, because after g takes f4, there's a very strong move, which is rook takes f4. After rook takes f4, bishop takes f6, or rook takes f6 is a threat, so the rook has to be taken, and now after queen takes d4, the knight cannot be protected, and black is simply losing. For example, castling, bishop takes queen e8, and now bishop h8, very strong move, queen g7 cannot be protected, because the f pawn is actually under the pin, so there's no f6, queen e5 is not there, so black is just losing the game and checkmated. So what can black do? After g5, we go f4, and now in this position simply the bishop can be taken, g takes h4, and after f takes e5, now very strong move is d5 in this position. Okay, you take whatever knight you like, but I am attacking the bishop, and say for example e takes d5, now knight takes d5, and after queen takes d4, yes, you got your piece back, but you have not much more than that. After bishop e6, I am just protecting the knight, and in the future I will just go queen d7, castling long. Say for example like ideas like rook d1, attacking the knight. Now black has a very strong move, try to find it out. Exactly, knight e3. Now knight e3, I'm attacking the rook, and you cannot take queen takes e3 because your rook will be taken, and if queen takes d8, rook takes d8, rook takes d8, king takes d8, I'm attacking the bishop, I'm attacking on c2, probably the g file is there, my pieces are much more active than your pieces, and black is simply has a big advantage here. Fifth trap, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5, castling, knight f6, and now in this position say d4. After d4, we said bishop takes d4 is the best move, but if black doesn't know that, then knight takes d4 probably to be coming, but this allows knight takes e5, now f7 is under fire, castling in this position, and now simply bishop e3, and white is, believe it or not, winning. So why? Because I'm attacking the knight, and the bishop is there, so I cannot go knight c6. So I can simply take on c6 and then take the bishop, because I'm attacking the queen. That's why if knight e6, saying that okay, if you take my bishop, I'll take back with the knight. But there's this very strong move, bishop takes e6, and after bishop takes e3, there's this bishop takes f7. And if you take, I take, you take, I take, and I will be up an exchange and with no compensation, a weak king. So after bishop f7, king h8 is played, and now simply bishop b3. The bishop is under fire, and if you move your bishop back, then knight f7 to be there. So queen e7 is played, knight f7, take, 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 and then after f takes e3, white is simply big material up, and simply winning. e5 is coming, and knight c3, queen d4, etc, etc. That's why in the opening, we should not take knight takes d4, we should take bishop takes d4, and following the previous trap. Sixth trap, we are coming now to what's so called the advanced gambit. After bishop c4, bishop c5, we go right away b4. After b4, bishop takes b4, c3, bishop c5, and now we just castle. d4 is there, but castle is there as well. Now, very interesting move for black, and actually this is, I don't want to say a refutation for the advanced gambit, because computer says it's just slightly better for black. is to play bishop b6, and after d4 just go d6 and you're very solid in this position. Continuing with knight f6, probably castling. Okay, white has some activity, but black is a pawn up, and a pawn is a pawn, as they said. But after castling, black pretend that it's normal and went on to play knight f6, which is not very accurate move, because now after d4 things are out of control. After d4, e takes d4, c takes d4, bishop b6 back, and now what's tough on black's position, his pieces has no good squares, stable squares, like e5. Where can this knight go? Like d5 is protected, e4 is weak, like there's queen e2, rook e1, queen c2, bishop d3, bishop d5, many stuff. So now black tried to do something with d5, but it doesn't work, because after e takes f6, d takes c3, there's this rook e1 check, and after king f8, bishop a3 check, king g8, and now simply d5, d5 attacking the knight. Knight a5, but now the e7 square is not protected, bishop e7, queen d7, f takes g7, the rook now is under fire, so you cannot pretend that there's nothing happening and you have to take it. But after this, queen d2, queen g5 is a threat, queen g4 trying to stop that, but queen c3 is another idea, and after king g8, queen takes h8, very strong checkmate, and after king h8, bishop f6, and rook e8, checkmate. Actually, if king g8 as well, rook e8 is a checkmate. So for the Evans gambit, as we said, don't play knight f6. You already lack development, you need to stable the position. So bishop b6 is one of the ideas in order to play d6 on time. Or maybe you could start with d6, like after d4, bishop b6 again. So don't open up the position, don't e takes d4. Usually in the e4, e5 openings, usually e takes, c takes, then there is always e5 idea, very dangerous, very like risky, so never try that. One more stuff, or one more trap again for the Evans gambit, the 7th trap. b4 takes c3, and after bishop c5, d4 right away. And now again bishop b6 is interesting reply. E takes d4 in this position, and after that white is just castling. And now I mean you can be greedy, but you cannot be too greedy. In this position, black went on to be too greedy and took the other pawn, and now it's simply ideas like queen d5 or bishop takes f7 first. Actually, queen d5 right away, there's queen e7, so it doesn't work because this is protected, this is protected, but there's this idea of bishop takes f7, and after king f7, there's this queen d5 check, king f8, queen c5. Computer says it's only +1 for white, but practically white is losing because the king is super weak and super bad. Ideas like bishop b2 is coming, knight g5, probably knight e6, knight f7 with the help of the queen later on. So white is practically, I can say, winning. So what can I do? Again, don't be too greedy, and after just taking one pawn, probably like go back something like bishop b6, for example, and after that d6 trying to hold, knight f6 castling, bishop g4, maybe trying some ideas like bishop g4, queen d7, castling long, try to do something, but don't go knight f6 and allowing this e5 with Timby. 8th trap. e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, and again it's bishop c5. And now in this position, the early c3. Knight f6 attacking on e4, d4 takes, bishop b4 check, knight c3, and now knight takes e4. This is actually an interesting move and important to be played. Why? It's not out of greediness, but I'm not sure if this is an English word, but it's very important because e5 is coming. I want to stop e5, so it's a defensive move, it's not a greedy move again. So knight takes e4. But now after castling, I mean, that's it. Don't take too many pawns. Like maybe knight takes c3, and after b takes c3, even go back. Like okay, bishop e7 I cannot go because after bishop e7 there's this annoying d5, and the knight cannot actually have a very good square. If knight a5 in this position, there's very strong d6, and if bishop takes d6, then rook e1, king f8, bishop f7. This is too much. And after this queen d5, and the king will be weakened, the knight will be taken. So I'm not sure, maybe bishop takes c3, okay, fine. d5 is played, and now in this position, what should have been played is just bishop f6. And after you take the knight, I went castling and I am completely fine. But here in this position, no, black doesn't want to give anything back. He wanted to play knight e5. Okay, if you take my bishop, then I'll take your bishop, and I am going to be a b-sub, etc. Okay, I mean, sounds good. I will take, you'll take back. And now queen d4, and black said it's fine. I'll go knight cd6, knight is protected. Next I will castle, I am a p-sub, and there's no compensation. But hello, there's this idea of queen g7, and now after queen f6. Queen takes f6, knight takes f6, and what's interesting about this position is there's no way for black to go now the best move, which is knight fe4. Why? Because he has been greedy for maybe 14 moves from the start of the game. Now it's not the time to go back. But if he's tactically good, then king d8 probably our knight fe4 has to be played, because f king f8, then there's this idea of bishop h6 check. Okay, but he said fine, okay, bishop h6 king e5, and there's no rook e8, but there's this very strong, very powerful idea, not rook e6 for sure, but then rook e5, and the threat is rook g5 is a very deadly threat. And say for example knight to e4, simply I could go rook to e1, threatening rook takes, and if takes then there is rook e8, so you cannot stop everything actually. So after rook e1, if king d8 in this position, then simply again bishop g5, and the knight cannot be protected, trying to do something, but then rook takes e8, and after king e8, rook e1 check, you go back, bishop h6 check, and after king g8 again rook e5 threatening rook g5 checkmate, you go d6 rook g5, probably you cannot do anything. You could go knight e4, but again rook e8 is another checkmate. So what should I do? Again, as we said, simply like after d5, simply give up your knight here, just go bishop f6 and have castling as fast as possible. Probably white has compensation for the pawn because he's a pawn down now, but the game is continuing. Ninth trap, e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6. This is also called the fried liver attack, and I mean, it's a very bad feeling. I still remember it right now, probably 15 years ago or something, after e takes d5. I took knight takes d5. I was not aware of theory here. And after knight takes d5, knight takes f7, and my opponent just crushed me after knight f7. This is actually the trap. Knight f7, king f7, check, king e6, knight c3, and attack. Ideas like d4, f4, later on castling, bishop d5, bishop b3, check on d5, check on f7, check on d5, check on e5. I mean, too many checks, too many threats, too many attacking ideas, and you're just defending. But what to do? You have a very bad king, and this is actually losing for black. I mean, there's no one way to do that. Multiple ways to do that. That's why what's interesting about the fried liver attack is after e takes d5, I don't take. Main move is knight a5, which is good enough. Another actually less known move is knight d4 or b5. This move I like. After b5, if you take my knight, I'll take your bishop, and if you take on b5, then queen takes d5, and now the bishop is under fire, the g2 pawn as well. So it's a bit of a tough position actually for white, and black is kind of okay, and his pieces is super active. 10th one and the last one, e4, e5. Knight f3, knight c6, bishop c4, knight f6, d4 right away. Again, e takes d4 is better, and normally after e takes d4, e5, d5 is the idea. F bishop b5, knight e4, and it's kind of a reverse scotch or stuff, but it's a game actually. You cannot lose this in maybe 20 moves or something, and the bishop will go either to e7 or to c5, castling after that, bishop g4 sometimes, etc, etc. So after d4, knight takes e4 is played, which is kind of risky, and after d takes e5, again queen d5 is a very risky idea. So here in this position, d6 has to be played, and allowing this bishop f7, this is very risky actually, not recommended. Queen d5 check, and after bishop e6, I will take queen takes e4, and this is actually a very good position for white because this king is super weak. That's why again, don't take knight takes e4, but this is actually the trap. And now d takes e5, bishop c5, and now after bishop c5, simply queen d5 is winning. I am attacking on f7, and queen e7 now doesn't work because I'm attacking the knight as well. Say knight f2, then queen f7 mate, and if bishop f2, simply king e2, you castle, I take on e4, and after d5, I take bishop d5, and this bishop is under fire, say bishop b2, but it's fine, like I can go knight c3, bishop f4, rook d1, or maybe ideas like simply rook c1, king, and hide your king back, maybe rook d1, king d2, king c1 after bishop e3, I'm not sure, but you have too many options, too many stuff. This is actually the 10th trap. I hope you like it, I hope you find it useful. Now, if you would like to know a very aggressive strategy, in the previous video I have explained a very aggressive strategy for white for the Italian opening based on a very strategical no memorization plan. You can check it out, you can find it here, and if you like this content, please subscribe and share, and see you soon.